Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this current news webinar on making a mobile app. We are Swansea University. We're really thrilled that you could join us. And without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Stephen, who is hosting tonight. Diolch. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Hi, folks. Thanks for coming. One of the things about doing a webinar is like you can't see people. So I'm glad I can see that there are people there. As Rhiannon said, as we're chatting today, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, if you've got ideas, please stick them into the Q&A or into the chat function and we'll see them. What you'll find is some of the stuff I might respond to immediately. Some of the stuff I might say, I'll come back to that at the end if it's a kind of question. So I hope that's okay. One of the things I'm hoping is I will be kind of looking for your input, looking for your ideas, looking for your kind of questions as we're going through. So, let's get lots of ideas going. Let's get kind of some dialogue going, because I like doing these webinars, but at the same time, I like talking to people and I love hearing your ideas and your thoughts. So that would be great if we can do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go into kind of talking a little bit about the project. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about a project that I've been working on with some colleagues and with some students over the last year, which is essentially about making a mobile app that we're calling Trust the Experts. We're going to take you through what the product is, how it works, how we've developed it, and kind of why we've wanted to develop it. And there's going to be a chance for us to play a little bit of the game that we've produced and that kind of thing as we go through. I'll come to what this is about in a second, but before I get into what we're doing here, I want to start by asking you for some thoughts yourselves. So I've put this question on the slide here. What are universities for? Why do they exist? If you could, give me some ideas in the chat. What do you think universities are for? Why do people like me exist? Why do universities exist? What are universities for? Give me some thoughts in the chat. And I just want to, there's no wrong answer here. I just want to get some ideas from you about what you think, we're trying to accomplish as a university. So give me some ideas in the chat. What do universities exist for? And just while you're doing this, I'm sure many of you, if you're at school, are kind of used to this kind of online style of learning. This is one of the things that we've obviously been doing in the last 18 months and we're taking forward, is kind of being able to interact with students in different ways. So rather than saying to you guys, you've got to put your hand up in a classroom and speak in front of hundreds of people, we can use these kind of chat functions to get ideas. Great. Okay. So innovation, ideas, invention. Well, hopefully we'll have a little bit of that today. There's some really great comments in here. I'll pick up on these in a second. When I ask this question normally, what people who are 17, 18 usually say is to teach people. Usually people say universities exist to teach us and to make us better at our subject. And that's a really important part of what people like me do, is to teach students. But there are some other reasons that universities exist. And you guys in the chat, and I'm really impressed by this, are starting to pick up on some of that. One person in the chat, they're saying to broaden people's minds. So that's one thing. It's about, I guess, an intellectual journey for individuals, broadening people's mind, exposing them to new ideas. Another thing here, somebody's saying in the chat, is meeting people who share your interests. So there's this sense of university as being a sense of community, as a place where people who are like-minded come together and explore things. And somebody else saying sharing knowledge to make society better. And so here we're kind of looking outwards from the university towards the wider world. And that's something that I kind of want to pick up on here. So we've got these kind of few different strands. And, for me as a lecturer, I have part of my life that's about research. I've got part of my life that's about teaching, and part of my life that is about this sharing knowledge, because I teach ancient history. I research ancient history. What part of what I want to do is make sure that some of the ideas that I explore in my research, which I do think have relevance to the modern world, actually get out there and we communicate those with people. So we've got this idea of kind of, sharing ideas sharing knowledge to make society better. And I've just shared here with you a line from the Swansea University Strategic Vision and Purpose document, just to give you a sense of this. And it says, we will open our university to the public. And it's this idea that universities belong to the community, are part of the community, and the knowledge that we create, the ideas that we create in the university, we want to sort of spread as far and wide as possible. We want to kind of get as many people engaged with our ideas as possible and working with us And that's what this project that we're going to talk a little bit about today is about. So I'm not going to be talking about stuff that we're doing in the classroom. I'm going to be talking about how we're taking some of that stuff in the classroom, pulling it together and packaging it in a new way that hopefully engages with different audiences who wouldn't normally kind of interact with us. So trust the experts is what we're kind of talking about. And that's the kind of project heading. And so trust the experts is basically a collaboration between a lot of different people in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at Swansea University. You've got me, you've got a couple of other people who work in ancient history, you've got somebody who works in media, we've got people coming at this who work in law, we've got people who work in management, who've worked together as the kind of core team who've led this project. But we've worked with over 30 different academics in the university. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to get people from different kind of parts of the university talking to each other and find a way to help people, ideally people your kind of age, 17, 18, doing A-levels, get a sense of the different subjects that you can do at university and a sense of why those subjects matter. And so what we've done is we've designed a game in which users basically manage a country through a fictional pandemic. And along the way, the user is going to have to make decisions about what they want to do. And to help them make the decision, they get some advice from experts, and that's the academics in the university. So that's kind of what we were hoping to do. And what I'll do today is talk you through how we've gone about achieving that. But one of the things that we were really passionate about, and one of the things I think we're passionate about at Swansea University, is creating partnership between our staff and our students. Because, right, you know, I'm an expert in ancient history. Can I say I'm an expert? I'm theoretically an expert in ancient history. I know about ancient history, right? I'm a lecturer, I do research and I can teach, right? I haven't got a clue how to make an app or a game. Neither have most of my colleagues, right? I also, you know, I try my best to be able to talk to you guys and to talk to people outside the university and find ways to communicate with you. But there are other people in the university who do that better than me. So we wanted to bring those people together. And some of those people are our students. We want to work with our students as much as possible when we're doing this and work in partnership, because our students are going to have great ideas about how to do this kind of thing. So we wanted to bring some students on board. So for all this project's being kind of led by some academics, and although I'm an academic who's kind of fronting this today, actually an awful lot of the work that's gone into this and a lot of the strategic decisions that have been made by our students. And you'll meet some of those students through some recorded videos as we go through. So the first thing I just want to talk about, is this idea of recruiting student project managers, because one of the things we want to do as a university is, yes, you do your subject. You come to university, you do your subject. You're going to go to your classes. You're going to learn about subject content. You're going to do that kind of thing. You're going to do your assessments and all that, and you're going to get a qualification at the end of it. But we're also keen to make sure that you develop life skills and develop employability skills that are going to make you well suited and make you competitive in the job market when you leave university. And a project like this that is going to involve working with budgets and managing time and working with different people is a good example of how we might do this. So what I'm going to do now is just share a video with you from one of our student project managers. We recruited 3 different student project managers who were responsible for different areas of the project. And we recruited a kind of a student overseer, a student kind of super boss, as it was, who kind of managed the whole thing. We recruited undergraduate students, we recruited master's students to kind of have, you know, diversity in the students that we're working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch windows now very quickly, and I'll introduce you to Abby. So this is Abby who, well, I'll let Abby introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Abby, and I'm a second-year law student studying at Swansea. My role was project manager for research and content. I applied to be involved because the project looked really interesting. It was something unique, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to develop my leadership skills and my confidence alongside my studies. So I applied by sending the team a CV and cover letter and was then shortlisted for interview. I found that the process really benefited me because I gained interview experience.
There you go. So that's Abby, and that's one of our kind of project leads. And I hope what you can see from that is when we were recruiting our student project managers, it wasn't just like, pick somebody, a student we know from class and tell them to do this. We actually did the process properly. So even the students who weren't successful in getting the position had interview experience, had experience of writing a CV, and we gave them detailed feedback on their performance in interview and gave them tips for this kind of thing. And I hope Abby won't mind me saying this. Abby is now taking a placement year in her law degree, and attributes part of that to kind of, she had to go through a formal interview to get that, and part of her experience in this probably helped her kind of think on her feet and that kind of thing. So we recruited student project managers. Now, the next thing for us, and this again was really important, is I haven't got a clue how to build an app. We've got a few people in the university who do know how to build an app. But what we wanted to do really was work with experts and work with people who do this for a living. So we were successful in gaining £10,000 worth of funding from the university, which had a fund in place to kind of support projects like this. And so we decided we'd try to work with an external partner. So for us, we had kind of two ways of doing this. First of all, we created an advert, kind of a tender that we sent out to lots of different companies, and they could kind of bid for the work, which is an insight into how this kind of process works. And we had our students kind of writing the brief, and we then sent our students and some of our team to have meetings with these potential external partners who were going to build the app and deliver the website for us. We kind of interviewed those people and kind of, for me, I don't do this kind of thing very often. And it was really cool to be able to sit in on meetings and, work out what kinds of companies had a kind of vision for the project that matched what we wanted, what kind of companies had the right kind of ethos. And crucially for us, we were going to have our students at the center of this project. So we needed to work with a company who we felt would kind of, respect our students properly, work with our students properly, give our students the responsibility that they needed in this project to make it happen. So we kind of interviewed quite extensively for this, and then settled on a company called Big Lemon, who are they based in Cardiff? Can't remember. They're based in Cardiff or Newport, somewhere like that. They're based in South Wales. So it was nice to be able to work with kind of a local company as well. And they're a kind of startup who are, developing as a company. So it was great to work with them, a really young, dynamic and new company. And they've been able to bring kind of their vision to this project as well. So for us, we were thinking about things maybe from the content of what we wanted this game to look like and what content we wanted in the game. But Big Lemon did a lot of the creative work, and you'll see that in a second. So we settled on them. This is kind of January time. And then we started to be able to kind of develop the project. And this is really where our students took over and played a really, really crucial role in what we were doing. And again, I'm just going to go back to a video from Abby, who will talk a little bit about what she did as part of this.
As part of the role, I've worked as part of a team with academics and other students to develop the content of the game. I had to contact academics to see if they wanted to get involved. I had to give presentations to academics about the game. I then had to email them with instructions about how to record their content. I was responsible for receiving and keeping track of this content and also reviewing it. I was also involved with thinking of game scenarios and metrics along with student volunteers and staff, which was pretty fun. Another key part was managing a team of student volunteers and arranging Zoom meetings where we worked on and researched metrics. This was something I really enjoyed because I hadn't done it before.
So I think you can see from what Abby's saying there that we gave our students kind of a range of different responsibilities. There's a little bit of administrative work like setting up Zoom meetings and stuff. But one of the things I hope you get from what Abby's just said there is that we gave our students real strategic responsibility in shaping this project. That what we were saying was, we're going to have this game where players are managing a country through a pandemic. But people like Abby were involved in saying, well, okay, what challenges might a country facing a pandemic have to deal with? And so we'll see some examples in a second, but it's things like, should we close the borders or not? Should we have a lockdown? And then people like Abby were working with our academics so that our academics could develop some advice that users of the game, players of the game would be able to receive. And Abby was giving them, briefings about what we wanted and how we wanted it delivered. And then also working on the kind of effects that decisions that people would have on kind of the response that the game takes. And I'll show you the response to the game in a second. But basically, every time you make a decision, it has an impact on the health of the population, the economy of the country, and that kind of thing. So Abby was involved in deciding, well, if you have a lockdown, how much of an impact should that have on the economy? Should that be a 10% decrease in gross domestic product? Should it be a 20% decrease? And we were having that conversation with her, and she was taking decisions like this. So our students had a real responsibility for developing the project. What I want to do now, because we've talked a little bit about the game, is I just kind of want to show you it, give you a sense of it, and to kind of play along a little bit with some of the game. So I'm going to sort of start from the very beginning, and I'm going to walk through a couple of the scenarios with you, and then get you to actually kind of participate in this and make some of the decisions yourself, and we'll see what you guys think. So this is the homepage of the game. You can play it in English or Welsh. I'm just going to flick through these opening slides, but you get a sense of the way in which you're kind of introduced to the game, and you kind of get a sense of the design that Big Lemon brought to the project for us. You've got this kind of desk that replicates a kind of office that you're working from. So when we get started, you immediately get a task that pops up. In this case, I'm just going to summarize this for you guys quickly. You sort of are informed about this. The first question is, when should we inform the public about the virus? And you get a little bit of a brief description of that. And then you get some advice. The first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get a phone call, and you can press play and you can listen to the phone call. I won't do that now because I want us to play a different scenario, but you listen to the phone call, you press, you then get a video call come through, and you can listen to that and get some advice about that. And then you get an email that comes from a different kind of perspective. So the phone call and the video call come from our experts in Swansea, and they'll give a bit of advice based on their kind of expertise. And that means coming at things from a different way. You might have a historian saying, well, in the past, this is what happened. And then somebody else might say, well, from a legal perspective, if you do this, this might be a problem. So once you've seen 3 bits of advice, you get given a task, and it says, when should we inform the public? And you get given these 3 options: tell the public everything, basically do it on a need to know basis, or say nothing. So we pick one. Let's just say for now, I'm going to pick B. And what happens is you can see immediately there's an effect on these different graphs. So you can see that generally we've got that bit of feedback, which is a bit mixed, but you can see that our national healthcare capacity, we're now 49% full. We were 50% full. So actually there's more space in hospitals. That's good. If you click on these little bars here, you get an indication of what, an explanation of what these metrics mean. You can see though that national well-being has declined to 46%. So fewer people are happy now than they were. You can see that our GDP, our gross domestic produce, has dropped a little bit. It was here, you can see it's kind of down to 40,500. And you can see that public trust in the government has dropped a little bit. Again, if we go through the next task, you get this question about how should we communicate information. We get a phone call from one of our media experts here. You get an email pop up with a little bit of information. And then we get another phone call, this time from one of our historians. So you can see we've got a media person and a historian giving us different advice here. And then again, we've got this advice. So I'm going to take option C just for an example. And let's have a look at the changes. Well, you can see, again, a little bit of a mixed feedback from people. National healthcare capacity, again, making a bit more space. Wellbeing's gone up. GDP stayed the same, but look at the public trust has fallen because of the decision we've made. What we're going to do now is we're going to play through one of the scenarios. So this time I'll bring the task up. I'll give you a chance to read the task. Maybe I'll read it out just to reiterate that. Then I'll play through the advice. I'll let you have the phone advice and the video call advice, and I'll let you read the email. And then I'm going to launch a poll, and we're going to see which of the options you guys want to take on here. Okay, so the third task here, the question is, should we close the borders? And you're given this little bit of information. The virus is starting to spread among neighbouring countries. When it reaches our shores, it could have a devastating impact on public health. Closing the borders might stop the virus entering the country, but it'll disrupt things like trade and travel. There might be legal implications too. What should we do? So that's the scenario. Should we close the borders? Let's see what our experts say. So we've got this advice from, you can see Paul Davis is calling. He lectures in business. Let's see what he's got to say.
As a leader, you are making important decisions, and this can be a challenge to do in times which are relatively certain and relatively stable. So, in a period of uncertainty, it becomes even more important that we have clear objectives that we can use to help us understand the decisions that we need to make. So, for example, is your objective to enable trade and to keep trade from moving? If so, this will inform the type of decision that will be relevant for you.
So there's Paul's advice. Let's see what's next. This time we've got advice from a lawyer.
The UK government has some quite extensive powers to control their borders, and they can prevent or deter individuals or goods which could harm the national interests from coming into the country. But there are limits on what they can do. They have an obligation, for example, to ensure that their own citizens, people who have UK citizenship, can come into the country. And they have obligations under international human rights law to ensure that border measures do not discriminate on any of the protected characteristics, including race, nationality, colour or religion.
So there's a little bit of advice, and here's an email. Now this time the email's not coming from one of our experts. You can see this is a question from a member of parliament, or an email from a member of parliament. And obviously we've created these to reflect different perspectives that one might get. This is from Humphrey Biggleswade. Making up names is a bit random. He says, "Dear Prime Minister, are we seriously thinking about closing the borders? Lots of people in the region that I represent in Parliament work with incoming goods because of the important trading hubs we have and the good communication links with neighbouring countries. If you close the borders, lots of them will lose their jobs. How will they be able to afford to eat and look after their families? What are you going to do to support them? If you close the borders, people will lose their livelihood and we will lose their support." Okay, so there's your advice. And now we've got this task and we've got to make this decision. So the question is, should we close the borders? Option 1 is close the borders completely for everything other than urgent medical supplies. Option 2 is close the borders partially, stop tourists entering and stop people traveling for personal reasons, but you still let trade come in. And option C is to leave the borders open with no restriction on movement. So what I'm doing now is I'm launching a poll. You'll see here that there's 4 options. That's just for something in a second, but obviously just use options 1, 2, and 3. So, choose which one you think we should do. Should we close the borders completely? That's option 1. Should we close the borders partially? That's option 2. Should we leave the borders open? That's option 3. Okay, and once you've voted, just in the chat, just type one line why you've chosen that option. Okay, so one person saying a partial effort won't work. I feel decisive action is needed, hence why I've voted to kind of close the borders. 2 extremes could both lead to complications, like either the pandemic getting worse or people suffering economically, so I voted for the middle ground. Yeah, okay. And what I love about this, and one of the reasons we've designed the game like this, is what we want to do is get people talking about important issues. You've had a little bit of expert advice there, and you can see that these experts are coming at things from a different perspective. But I love the 2 justifications that we've got in the chat there. People are voting for completely different things, but the logic that they're offering is really quite persuasive in both instances, right? So we wanted to use the game as a vehicle for getting people to talk about these kind of issues, to engage with us, to engage with the universities. And I'll talk in a moment about some of our next steps. And one of our next steps is to work with schools to develop kind of teacher packs, which means that this kind of stuff can be integrated into classroom things in some of the Welsh back activities, or in kind of citizenship classes and things like that. It keeps some control while businesses can still work. So again, somebody going for the middle ground saying there's a little bit of control. So I'll just share the results. You'll see that 75% of people went for option B. So that's what we're going to do with. I'll stop the sharing of that. I'm going to close that. So we're going to close the borders. Let's see what happens. We've closed the borders. All right, again, bit of a mixed response from people, but you can see our national healthcare capacity, well, we've increased, we've gone up to 86% full. There's 86% of our hospital beds are full now. If we get over 100%, it means that people basically can't get into hospital. But maybe it would have been worse if we hadn't done anything. You can see that our satisfaction, our happiness, our national well-being has declined. You can see that public trust has stayed kind of similar. And you can see that the GDP per capita has declined. But it maybe hasn't declined as far as it might have done. All right, we'll do one more of these scenarios and then I'll pull some other things out of this. So tell you what, I'll talk through this one and I'm curious to try the next one on you, see what happens. So again, you get this next question, how kind of serious should things be? That's Val. You get an email coming in saying, here's a little bit of advice. You get another phone call, this time from a historian. And then you get this choice, how extreme should it be? I'm going to just say no lockdown out of curiosity. And you can see immediately, oh, suddenly everyone's unhappy because national healthcare capacity, the hospitals are full, right? Because that's the impact. But you can see that satisfaction's declined again, but you can see that actually GDP's kind of recovered a little bit. So it's kind of stabilized. We haven't tailed off, yeah? And public trust is there. All right, so the next task, here's the scenario. We'll play this together. What is the short-term priority? Scientists have developed a vaccine, so the virus is becoming more manageable. People want to socialize and get back to normal, but the economy has been severely impacted by the pandemic. What should be the priority over the next 6 months? Your choice will have an impact on the health of the population, but the rollout of the vaccine might protect people. So let's see what it's going to be. So this is coming from somebody who specializes in English literature.
In his publication of 1722, Journal of the Plague Year, Daniel Defoe describes an outbreak of bubonic plague in London in the 16th century. Despite the terrible death toll, he notes that as the cases of disease began to decline, the people cast off all apprehensions, and that too fast. You may therefore want to carefully consider how quickly you ease lockdown restrictions in case you are acting prematurely.
So there's advice from kind of a historical English perspective. Here's somebody coming in from law.
In 1991, the United Kingdom became a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is a seminal international child rights treaty. And within the treaty, Articles 28 and 29 speak of the need for recognition of a global right for children to have a good education, and not just a good, but a quality education. And the Committee on the Rights of the Child in 2001 issued General Comment 1, which focuses on education, and it powerfully explains how very important it is. And although we've experienced a pandemic, a profoundly damaging pandemic, the transformative right to education for children remains. And so in the light of the emphasis rightly that's placed on education, surely when priorities are being considered in the process of unlocking, getting children back into school is critical.
And then the email, again, this is something from your chief of staff. And she says, the Aberdemic Retail Association has been in touch requesting a meeting with you. This is a new organisation created by independent shop owners who were affected by the pandemic. Their letter includes testimony from individual members of the association. Adelina Teodosiah writes, you'll need to get more people through you need to help us get more people through our doors ASAP. We are going bust and letting people go without revenue. You must understand the impact this is having on the economy. I've told them you're too busy to meet with them, but we'll consider their views. Claire. So there's some perspectives. So here's the question for you guys. What is the short-term priority? You've consulted your advisors. Now it's time to make a decision. Do you want to send children back to school if they've been closed? Encourage parents who've kept their children at home that they should return to the classroom? Do you want to encourage domestic and international tourism? Do you want to promote visiting non-essential business? Do you want to give people the opportunity to spend time with their family and friends, including allowing people to visit others in their homes? Do you want to prioritize clearing the backlog of legal and medical cases? Now, I'm going to launch this poll again. And again, just give a little justification in the chat of why you've chosen that option. So I can see people are voting, which is great. Do give a vote now and just have a little type in the chat of what your justification is for that. Yeah. Okay. We've got some suggestions coming in. Now, this is really interesting. Got a justification that sending children back to school normalizes life for families as a whole, and this helps educationally and economically. I'm sharing that poll now, so hopefully you can see it. Everyone who's voted has voted for option A, has voted to send children back to school. And I think that's interesting. I think I was told a little bit about who's registered for this, and I think most of you are probably doing A-levels now. It's interesting that all of you are voting for that option, probably having experienced the disruption that it's caused to your education yourself. I wonder if we went out and did this to people who owned businesses, whether they might have gone for something different. So you can maybe see your own kind of experiences of the pandemic affecting your choices here. But the other thing I'd say is you've had little different bits of advice, and Anthony's advice there was very, very strong. Anthony said it is critical that we get children back into school. And you've seen now 4 different experts give advice. And Anthony's probably the person there of those 4 who's been the clearest about what he thinks you should do. And one of the interesting things I think that's come out of this for us is we've asked our experts what they think. And some of our academics have been very much, this is what you should do. And other academics have been a little bit more kind of on the fence and saying, well, if you do this, this might happen. If you do this, this might happen. So it's interesting here that you guys have kind of really followed Anthony's advice there. So we'll send the children back to school. Let's submit that and see what happens. Just going to stop that sharing. Okay, so you can see healthcare started to go down a bit, you know, the capacity, well-being, you can see we're getting a little bit happier. You can see public trust is increasing slightly, and you can see kind of a gradual bit of kind of recovery there. And then the final thing, I'm just going to click through this just to get to the end bit, is about long-term priorities, where we're talking about what should we do in the long term. And you're given these options, you know, what's the long-term priority? Economic recovery, economic growth, education, health security. So if I do economic growth, for example, what happens here? Well, we're still kind of over the healthcare capacity 6 months because of the slow recovery. People are getting happier, but look at the sudden boom we've had in GDP. But public trust is still not recovering particularly well, perhaps because the healthcare capacity is still kind of overflowing. So now we get to the kind of results bit, and what you can do is you can see some kind of general results that come through. So if we have a look at things, you can see, well, the GDP actually is 25% higher now. So despite the pandemic, the focus on economic recovery at the end has kind of worked out quite well for the country. Common response from people was kind of a bit of a mixed bag of sentiment. You can see that healthcare, well, the demand for hospital beds is 118%. So we are oversubscribed for hospital beds after the pandemic, haven't recovered yet. General population is a bit happier since they took office, but only kind of slightly. And then public trust has declined because of the way you've managed the pandemic. And then you get this overall, based on your decisions, you've got a 47% chance of being re-elected in the next election. And what you can do then is you can play again, you can share the results on Facebook, or you can click through and find out more about the university. So that's the game. And I just want to explain a couple of things about, you know, what we found with doing the game, because one of the things we want is we want people to kind of like play the game more than once. And so there's a couple of things in there that hopefully help with that. First of all, that end screen that tells you this is the percentage chance you've got of getting re-elected. Well, hopefully that's encouraging people to kind of go through and play again. And this is some of the ideas that we got from working with our students who said this will increase the playability of the game, and also with working with our kind of creative partners at Big Lemon. The other thing is every time you go on to a different scenario, you'll get different advice. So you saw 4 different experts. If you play the game yourself after this, and I'm going to put the link in the chat, if you play the game yourself, you might see different people because we've got 30 different experts in the game and we're just pulling it in at random as to who you see. So hopefully that means every time you play it, you get different advice and it'll challenge you in different ways. And the other thing just about it is one of the interesting discussions we had as a team was, how do we capture the randomness of life? Because what we didn't want people to do is say, oh, well, Swansea University say, if we did this during a pandemic, if we took all of these decisions, this would be the end result. Because one of the things, I'm a historian, right? First of all, it's really challenging to take an idea or a solution from one period of history and apply it to another, because societies are so complex that it's very rarely applying one thing to kind of something that's equivalent. The other thing is that sometimes things are a bit random. Sometimes life's a bit random. So we've played that and brought that into the game. So every time you make a choice, instead of saying this is going to have a 10% reduction of GDP, we've given it kind of a percentage range. So instead of it being 10%, it might be this is going to lower GDP by 5% to 20%. And basically it's a dice roll as to what impact it's going to have. So the same decision, sometimes it'll have a 10% impact on GDP, sometimes it'll have a 12%, sometimes it'll have a 20% impact. And that kind of captures a little bit of the uncertainty of politics and decision making. So it hopefully adds a little bit to the randomness of the game and gets people talking a little bit and gets people kind of coming back and playing things again. So that's kind of the game itself. If I dive back into this PowerPoint, that's kind of where we are now. We're right at the point where we've made the game and the game is live and people can play it. And what we're doing now essentially is trying to promote it. So the game itself, we're going to have, we're working with a social media team who we've hired in to do some social media content for us, which will go out at the end of October. We're also, as I said, starting to work with schools and with kind of specific teachers to design some kind of curriculum stuff like support packs for schools that can go into schools, and teachers can then just pick this up off the shelf and use it as a lesson plan, basically. And I think for the students who are involved, that's really cool on two fronts. And first of all, you've got this opportunity to manage a marketing team, a managing marketing experience. We've got a couple of guys working on the project who, are genuine marketing experts. One of our project leads, Will Fleming, used to kind of work in marketing for Swansea City Football Club, worked, 30 years in the industry, 40 years in the industry, whatever it is. So we've got real experts here guiding our students in how to run a marketing campaign, which is great for them. And I'll show you a kind of video from Sophie, who's been doing that in a second. But also we've now got this chance for other students to work with schools and work with kind of designing lesson plans and things like that, that'll hopefully kind of, for students who are interested in going and working and teaching in the future, gives them a little bit of experience. So that's where we are now. And we're starting to look at kind of growing this and getting this out there and getting this into schools and getting it used. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do now. And I'm starting to talk there a little bit about the next steps as well. But what I wanted to do was just kind of reflect on what students have got out of the project. So I'll switch windows. I won't switch windows. What I'll do is, this is Sophie. Sophie was responsible for managing our marketing. She can't be here tonight because she's now got a real job. She's graduated and she's gone off to work for a marketing agency. So this project was the kind of thing that she was talking about in interviews and stuff when she was applying for jobs. So I'll play this video from Sophie, which hopefully kind of gives you a sense of what students have got out of working with us on this.
Hi, my name is Sophie. I'm a third-year business management with marketing.
I'll just say as well, Sophie's quite quiet. I've got my thing on full volume here, I think. So if it's quiet for you, just turn up your volume if you can.
Student at Swansea University. I saw the project as a fantastic collaborative effort in order to not only develop my own skills, but to support those younger than me in enabling them to understand the benefits and opportunities to them at university. In this project, the selection process was a stage of interviews where I met with the leading academics within the marketing and PR department so that they could get a grasp of my experiences and whether I was the right fit for the team. Through this selection process, I was not only able to showcase my skills, but I was able to develop my interview experiences to enable me to be greater equipped for those experiences after I graduate university. Within this project, I sat within the position of the Student PR and Marketing Project Manager. In this role, I was supported by the leading marketing and PR academics, whereby we produced PR and marketing campaigns for the Trusty Experts launch, due to occur in September. Not only this, but I have recruited and worked with a small team of student volunteers to support me in the creations of PR and marketing activities. one of the main responsibilities in this position has also been to collaborate with some of the local schools in the area and able to showcase to them the benefits of the Trust the Experts gain amongst Welsh Baccalaureate classifications. With regards to my CV, one of the amazing opportunities I've had within this position is to design and implement a PR and marketing campaign, which I haven't had the opportunity to do beforehand. Thinking about my degree at university, this project has brought some excitement and also some amazing opportunities to my final year at Swansea University. It has been through this project where I've developed amazing new skills and met some fantastic people that has equipped me with the knowledge and abilities to be confident in my marketing abilities, so forth that I've been able to secure a position after university. This project has been exciting because it's not only created a game in which is able to inspire the next generation, it's done it in a way that has taken use of the COVID-19 pandemic and spun it into something which can be used as a positive attribute into society.
So that's what Sophie thinks, and I'm just going to very quickly switch windows and give you kind of Abby's final thoughts as well.
I've really enjoyed working on the project. I feel like I've learned a lot. My confidence in general has improved with public speaking and communication, and I also feel like my organisational skills have definitely improved. I had to use things like Google Docs and spreadsheets to keep records of content. I also think the placement helped with my degree as it was remote working, so I got familiar with Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Also, I gained research skills when researching for the metrics of the game. I feel like I've definitely developed leadership skills, and it was really nice to work with and learn from other students from different degree areas and also academics as well. I found that I've been able to talk about the placement in interviews, and I've been able to use it to evidence skills. It was also really nice. It was something completely different from my law degree. Overall, I've really enjoyed being involved in the project, and I definitely recommend getting involved in similar things at Swansea Uni.
So that's kind of Abby's view. And if I dive back into my PowerPoint, yeah, I think just to kind of wrap things together, I think when we went into this project, we had quite a lot of different aims as to what we thought a project like this could achieve. We wanted to work together as academics across a faculty and talk to each other and learn from each other. We wanted to work with students in partnership so that we could learn from our students. We wanted to give our students new opportunities that they might not get on a day-to-day basis in their degree and create kind of something special for them. We also kind of wanted to create something which was accessible and fun and which kind of introduced people to research in a new way, hence the kind of approach we took with the game. And we also wanted to do something that brought together academics from lots of different backgrounds so that you, as people who are 16, 17 and thinking about what to do at university, could get a sense of how different people might approach the same kind of problem. That when you take a question like, should we close the borders? Well, you heard advice from Paul Davis, who's coming at things as somebody who's a strategic business leader, saying, hey, you need to think strategically. What are your objectives? But you also heard advice from a lawyer who's saying, well, this is the law. These are your obligations. And so you can see that that's the same question and people are approaching them in different ways. So exposing you to those kind of ideas hopefully helps you think about, hey, what kind of way do I want to approach the world? What kind of way do I want to think about society? And understanding that might give you some indications of what kinds of things you want to do at university. But I think most of all, what I think we wanted to do and what I hope the project kind of achieves and demonstrates is that it shows you can do lots of different things at university, that it doesn't just have to be, academics teach and then go off and do their research, that students learn and then go off and have fun. It doesn't have to just be that all of the stuff you get that makes you employable comes from your degree itself, but it shows you that there's this kind of wider community and all these kind of activities that you can get involved in. And the thing I think I have enjoyed the most about it is I've learned so much from the students who've been involved in this. And I think it's, we talk about this idea of partnership between staff and students all the time in the university, about students shaping their own learning and shaping their own kind of experiences in the classroom. And I think a project like this shows that we do work closely with our students and we can, yeah, our students have a stake in what we do and can shape what we do and can take leadership in what we do. So I think that's what we're hoping. And the other thing that's really interesting now that we're talking about is we're hoping to be able to do some research that comes out of this. So we've now got kind of metrics of, people have made this decision in the game and we know which experts they've listened to. So the next step is to start to look at that data and say, well, are people more likely to follow the advice of a man than a woman, for example? What does that tell us about gender attitudes and that kind of thing? So ultimately the game itself is going to contribute to the research that we do. And that's one of the lovely things about a project like this, where on the one hand it's teaching, on the other hand it's outreach and contributing to this idea of, getting the university's knowledge out there, but it's also something that can generate research for us in the future and then, generate new ideas and things. So that, I think, is what we're hoping that the project achieves, and we're excited to kind of get it out in the world. I'll put the link in the chat in a second if you want to go away and play it and tell your mates and tell your teachers and tell your parents and all that kind of thing. But if you've got any questions, feel free to ask those questions now and I'll do my best to answer them. But that was all I kind of got to say. So any questions?
Oh, thank you so much, Stephen. I'll just join back on quickly because at this stage I will stop the recording. So thank you very much to everyone who joined us on the record, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, let me just quickly say thank you on the recording as well, to say thanks to any of you for contributing ideas and stuff. A session like this only works if you've got ideas. And I think that's true when you come to do university degree. It only works if you come with some ideas and engage with us and let us kind of work with you.
Absolutely. It's 100% a two-way street. I totally agree. So thank you to everyone joining us after the fact on the recording.